You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 163.
Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast dedicated to healing your heart and life following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, a twice certified life coach specializing in post-traumatic growth. If you're experiencing the effects of alienation and you're ready to heal, then this show is my love letter to you. Stay tuned.
Hey, yo, how we doing today? If you are watching, you see my background and actually me as a whole. I look probably a little disheveled. In the background, I'm in my office that I'm remodeling, and it's a mess in here, but I was distracted out in my usual area for recording. So I'm in here today and I've been a little bit sick. So it's basically a come as you are today. I'm going to pull my notes up and then I don't have to see me. So I want to talk today with you guys. This week we're going to be talking about something that probably hits very close to home for nearly every alienated parent. And that is the urge, the longing really for things to be different. Maybe it shows up as wishing the court battles would finally end, hoping that your ex would stop with the cruel emails. Or maybe you find yourself thinking that if your child would just reach out, I would finally feel whole again. And honestly, you know that I get it. The longing for change is so deeply human. And with all that you've been through, all that we've been through, it only makes sense. But don't throw anything at me yet. What if it's not the alienation? If it's not the other parent and not even the seemingly endless legal trauma that's causing your suffering? What if instead it's the constant fight in your mind, the I can't be happy until loop that's keeping you stuck and disconnected from peace? Maybe you've noticed how you keep stacking your present moment pain, the resistance, the frustration, the anxiety, desperation, always chasing a future where it's finally fixed. Today, I want us to flip the script. Let's explore together how you can step out of that cycle, accept what is, and start building a life that feels meaningful and alive again. Right here, even as things are in their messy and imperfect current state. So let's all take a deep breath and dive into how acceptance can be the true beginning of change for you. So recently, the reason why this came up, you guys, is that I was listening over one of the recent episodes and I noticed that I said something that sounded like what I was trying to convey is that suffering is always sometimes created by your thoughts, by our thoughts, I think I was talking about self-created suffering versus any other kind of suffering. But what I meant there, I don't know if I was getting lazy in my own beliefs in that moment, like if what I was saying was as a result of my own thought errors, or if maybe I just didn't elaborate as much as I now think that I should have. Either way, I wanted to create this episode today to clear this all up, because I truly believe that this was the source of my own suffering for a very long time. And I know, it's also what creates so much pain and suffering within y'all as well. Okay? Is believing that I was suffering, that y'all maybe are suffering as a result of things external, as a result of the alienation, as a result of the ex writing berating emails, as a result of your kiddo being quote unquote disrespectful. And so this is definitely a more advanced topic. If this is the first time you are listening, then I guess what I would offer is that maybe go back and listen to some of the last few weeks' episodes. We just came off of last week, we were talking about burnout. And I think that this one, the topic that we're discussing today, is another cause for burnout, the way that we're thinking and interpreting our situations, okay? But it definitely is a more advanced topic. So, just basically what I'm saying is if I am new to you, then know that I am also an alienated parent. And for a very long time, I suffered in resistance to what was. Because in my mind, my beliefs were that this shouldn't be happening, that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, that this is child abuse. How can anybody just accept it? Right? That's where I was. But each and every one of those thoughts and many more created so much pain and suffering for me. I lived in my own personal hell. Like I was shackled to those thoughts, those beliefs, because I thought by letting go of those beliefs that I would be losing my core values and who I was as a person, my goodness. That's not true at all. So, anyway, let's get to why external focus perpetuates your suffering. All right. This actually today is not going to be a super long episode, and I'm doing this for a few reasons. One is that we have talked about this. If you've been a long time listener, you know that we have talked about suffering and that our thoughts create our suffering. But I want to put this out there today in the way that I'm going to say it, because even my longtime listeners who then become clients, within the first few sessions, I find myself saying some version of this, or we going over and visiting coursework that revolves around this concept. So I think it just can't be said enough and in enough ways. It's also a problem that not only every human faces, but we as alienated parents, many of us feel like we're the exception to the rule. And so I want to put it in our language, provide examples common to what we experience, so that maybe it'll set in for you in a way that helps you to create the life that you want moving forward. So, why external focus perpetuates suffering? Every time that parents say, I'd be happy if only, or if my child came back, I'd finally be okay, some version of that, you postpone your ability to feel peace, joy, or live in a state of acceptance in the present. This constant resistance builds up an identity around waiting, fighting, striving, which reinforces helplessness and anxiety each day that things stay the same. By focusing your energy on changing the other parent, changing your child or children, or the legal system, you sacrifice your own well being. Life ends up becoming a series of attempts to escape pain through external solutions. So, basically, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say in those 3 points is that your attempts to change the way that you're feeling on the inside by changing the outside are a waste of energy. It's a low quality way to go about getting the real, true, lasting results that you want in your life. In essence, all of our suffering, all of it, each and every one of us, is as a result of the thoughts that we're thinking. It's our perception of whatever the problem is at hand. And that is not to blame you. It's hopefully to free you, help you to free yourself. It's not that the alienating parent said something that I knew to be inaccurate that was causing me pain. It was my thought that they shouldn't be so evil, that he shouldn't be so evil, that the stepmom shouldn't be so evil. That was what was causing me pain. It's not that I'm sitting in traffic and that's what's causing me stress. No, sitting in traffic is actually a neutral until we assign meaning to it. And the meaning that I've assigned to it in the past is that I'm going to be late and it's going to disappoint whoever I'm meeting. Because other people could be sitting in traffic and feel fine about it. In fact, some people, seems crazy, could welcome the traffic because then that means it takes them that much longer to get to where they're going. And maybe they don't want to get to where they're going home. They were just in a fight with their spouse. There's so many different ways to interpret sitting in traffic. It's not that back in the day, it's not that I was negative in my bank account that caused me to feel depressed. Negative in the bank account doesn't have to cause depression. It was my thought that I will never have choices, that I'll always be broke, or that I'm broke because I don't have the skills or because of whatever else happened in my past. I'm broke because of all the fines that I had to pay for court because my ex was evil. Those stories are what was causing depression. The belief that I was never going to be able to make ends meet. It's not that you or whoever didn't get hired for the job. It's the thought that you'll never have enough or you'll never be enough. That's the thought or belief causing distress inside you or whoever's feeling that. Insert your own quote unquote problems into what I'm saying here. It's not even that my daughter wasn't home anymore. It's what I made that mean about me and for her. That I was going to be alone and without my baby. So now I wasn't going to be a mom anymore. That was a fear that I would have to change my identity. That was causing me the suffering. It was the belief that my ex shouldn't be able to get away with it, which caused a whole nother set of emotions for me. Also, that perhaps I failed her. That was a deeper one. I would try to resist it, but it was there. So instead of thinking those confronting thoughts, instead of facing whatever was going on for me in the moment and feeling the emotions under the grief umbrella, experiencing the loss, I wanted change to be right around the corner. I wanted to be and stay ready for my desired outcome of her coming back home. And so I was so invested in that outcome of her coming back home that it should have already happened. I've been doing all the things and it was striving and trying to get all the ducks in a row so that she could come back home because I was living in how things should be and how they never should have gone this way to begin with. I was so invested in the past and future that I stayed in resistance to what was actually now. I wanted to fight that reality tooth and nail out of fear that accepting it would make it more true and stay true for forever, for longer. To me, the idea was if I accept this now, if I accept that she's not here right now, then what would that mean about me? And I would have to sit with that grief. And so instead, I needed to busy myself by ruminating about the past or pipe dreaming about the future that I wanted so that I could get away from now. But in order to create and feel peace, I had to let go of my resistance and my denial. By accepting what was, I created the space to be present, which then allowed me to begin cultivating goodness in my present. By releasing my hold on the past, I could invest in my then, today, and start creating my future intentionally, like with purpose. But as long as I was in resistance or in denial of and refusal to acknowledge out of fear, then I perpetuated that. So I get it. I get it. If you are at the point right now, I mean, it doesn't have to be directly with your situation of alienation. It could be anything. In just a couple of minutes, I'm actually going to tell you about something I was in resistance to just this week, up until yesterday, where I was fighting with reality. For portion of that time, I wasn't aware that I was fighting reality until I talked to my coach. She pointed out to me how much I was actually in resistance. And then I was in resistance to that resistance, which created a lot more drama for me. And then it went away, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you are in resistance to anything in your life right now, and you've been in resistance to it, whether it's your kiddos or if it's that you don't have enough money or you're feeling stuck, right, in some area of your life, when you're not willing to acknowledge it and when you're still kind of arguing with reality by way of going back and trying to solve for what has happened in your past, or you're wanting to get somewhere different, like, I just, everything will be okay when I get up there. It'll be all fine once whatever happens externally, and then I'll be fine. Or even it'll all be okay when I create something. For example, like I, for a long time, chose not to move from Austin. I stayed in Austin maybe longer than I needed to, but I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't leaving to try to get happy somewhere else. You know, I didn't want to chase some promise that I was making to myself only to end up with me and still being upset. You know, that's why I offer to my clients to not change a job, even get out of a relationship or into a relationship, change the circumstances of your life if you're not currently okay with how your life is, because it puts you in a place of always chasing happiness, chasing something, because what you're saying to yourself is that what is isn't acceptable. And now this deserves some context because I know that in order to create something different, we need some sort of push out of where we are, right? Absolutely. Like some sort of motivation to get us there. But if you're selling the idea to yourself that up there is going to be better than here, then you're telling yourself a lie. Okay. And so when it comes to our situations of alienation and somebody else acting in a way that we think disrupts our happiness, then we're always going to be placing our focus on them and the problem. And I know that you guys have heard me talk about it in that way before. But what I find with parents, especially newer clients or consults, coming from talking about burnout last week, we often will create a cycle, a vicious cycle for ourselves of chasing some promise, some lie about why we need to get from where we are to somewhere better. And what you end up doing is if you are living in your future, I need to get there, I need to get there, it's going to be better there. It's never going to be enough when you get there because there will always be some condition on how you got there and it wasn't created in the way that would make the initial goal acceptable. There's always going to be a reason why the grass is greener, even when you get to your goal, your destination. If you're telling yourself that that there is going to create happiness for you, happiness or whatever emotions that you're looking for are all available to you right now, even in the middle of this messy, grief filled experience of alienation. So I just want to offer that, and I'm going to go into a little bit more depth in just a minute. So, in summary of what I was just said right there, the pain is not just the alienation, the harsh emails, or the court cost. It's the story in your mind that says, I can't be happy until these things change. The story itself resists reality, which will overwhelm you with frustration and grief every time the external falls short. So, resistance turns into chronic suffering when you, me, parents in general, replay negative events, argue in our minds about why things shouldn't be this way or they should be somewhere different, and mentally live in an imagined future instead of embracing what is in the present. Listen, suffering is part of the human condition. It's just what we're here, I believe, to overcome, all of us. Alienated, not alienated. Part of our existence is suffering. Without suffering, pain, discomfort, there is no growth. So it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's great to know that it's because of our own brains, our own perceptions. And because of that, as you've heard me say before, the great news is that if it's your own thinking and it's your own perception, then you are the one that can change it. You have all the control in your hands. So often, I talk with parents all the time that give so much, literally give their power away on a silver platter to the alienating parent, to the children, to whoever else in our life that we're blaming our unhappiness on. And I get it. This is not necessarily the most fun message if this is new for you. Like, oh, wait a second, you're telling me that the alienating parent isn't the cause of my pain? It doesn't feel just. But the more that you warm yourself, open yourself up to this truth, I promise you, the more choices you see that you have, the more opportunities that you can seize. Okay? People are gonna do terrible things. There is a lot of sadness and darkness and achiness in the world. All of that, everything I just said is also perception. There are choices that we could all judge, and it would be different for each of us, as good, as bad, as wrong, as right, as evil, as angelic. However, each one of those judgments will determine your own experience of reality in today. So if you want to up level the way that you see the world, then look at the way that you're receiving it on the every day with the little tiny things that happen in your life. You're waiting in line at the store and the line is too long. The person went in the express lane, 10 items or less, and they've got 32 items. Well, what are you thinking about that person? Are you making that a problem? And if so, that could be adding to the suffering that you're experiencing on the whole, you know? every little story that you have about all the things that happen in your day are going to pile up and contribute to your overall experience and suffering. I mean, you can't control the person that's in front of you online, right? You can't. There's nothing you can do. You could control your own perception of it and your own choices in that moment. You could decide, you know what, I could go to a different line. Or, you know what, it's not that important anyway. I don't need to be anywhere after this. So why am I in such a rush? You could find your power even in an uncomfortable or inconvenient set of circumstances, is all I'm saying. So it's not just my point here is it's not just the big, huge things that contribute to your current circumstances, but it's also the little baby choices that you make about how you see your reality. Because usually the habit to blame or to assign responsibility outside of us doesn't just show up in one or two areas of our lives. It normally shows up, especially in the beginning when you're learning this stuff, it shows up in all of the areas. It's a theme. Check inside of you. Start noticing over the next week or so what kind of stories that you are assigning to the everyday circumstances in your life. How are you perceiving the little things that happen during your day? That'll be really telling about how you also perceive the bigger circumstances as well. In short, I know for me that all of my suffering was as a result of my own resistance and desire to deny what was happening, that things should be different. People shouldn't act this way, that my ex should be supportive. People shouldn't lie. Parents should be able to co-parent together. They shouldn't undermine each other. I had so many different rules for how the world should act for me. But because I believed that I was being shorted in my life like that, I was unfortunate. I also limited what I created for myself in the future. Like if I thought that I didn't have, like mentioning what I was talking about earlier, when my bank account was in the negative for a long period of time back in the day, I made that mean about me that I just didn't have the skill set or in childhood didn't have the direction that I needed in order to create money, make money for myself. I always thought a man needed to create that for me. Well, because of that, when money did come into my life, like when I did create a little bit of money, I didn't keep it for a long period of time because my belief is that money doesn't stay. And so what did I do? My actions aligned with money doesn't stay. So I went and spent all the money as soon as I got it because it was like I didn't have it for so long. It was scarce. And so then I just went and spent it. It was all done at an unconscious level, but I did that because my brain was going to work for me, trying to make my reality match the beliefs I held about myself, you know? So whatever beliefs you do hold about yourself or about your life or what you're capable of, and if you're resisting your current state, still look at how you're believing about what you're going to be able to create for yourself because your brain will actually match the actions that you take on a subconscious level, like what's driving you, to your current limiting beliefs about what you can create. Does that make sense? Okay. What I was going to tell you about was this week has kind of been a doozy in the way that I had another flare up as far as my RA, and it caused new symptoms this time, symptoms that I hadn't yet experienced with this whole inflammation journey. Last night I had a fever, and the night before I had a fever. I had chills, low-grade fever, like 99, 100. Well, I talked to my coach yesterday, so my attitude got better. But before I had talked to her, I had a whole story around these new symptoms that showed up. The climate inside my brain was not good. I can deal with symptoms. I don't like them, but my body can handle it. But what aggravated my experience was my initial resistance to the current state of me. I had this idea in my brain, the story that I was telling myself is that these new symptoms must mean that something's gone terribly wrong inside me, that maybe I'm worse off than I thought. I had all of these what ifs. I was living in my past and living in my future. I had a huge resistance to the symptoms that I was having in the moment. And I exhausted myself, like exhausted myself. But I didn't want to accept at the time where I currently was. So instead, my brain went to blame. I wanted to blame what was happening inside of me on all the outside circumstances. And so I didn't necessarily go back to blaming my ex or blaming anything on my alienation. It was more like I wanted to blame my dogs for not being considerate and letting me do my work while I could. It was just being petty about what was currently happening with me. And I felt really victimized and woe is me. Like if I just had more time, or if these dogs wouldn't be bothering me, or if I didn't have these symptoms and what it was just a mess. It made me more miserable, all around. And my thinking only made my situation worse. It made me feel worse. And what do you know, when I put down my ego and the whatever weird desire I had to indulge in my negative thinking, my fever broke, you know? I relaxed, my headache disappeared. When I stopped the chatter inside my brain, things became okay. They settled down. And so the way that I was behaving with myself for this week is kind of on a much smaller scale what I think a lot of us do about our situations of alienation. We want to fight it. We want to kick and scream, blame, find little minuscule reasons why things are not okay in today, which only compound our issue. We want to look to the future and try to get somewhere different, but day after day of trying to get somewhere different, pile that up and it's creating this whole new identity and reality for you in the now and every day to follow. It's going to keep perpetuating. And so the second that you just stop and be like, what am I doing? Not blaming yourself. Don't turn it into a judgment session on you. Instead, like, hey, what are we doing here? How about we change this? It is where we are. It is. And yesterday, right after I got off with my coach, I took a deep breath. I settled down. I'm like, I am supported. I learned this from Byron Katie a while back. Is like, I am literally being supported right now by the chair that I was sitting in. I have support. I am okay. Now there's more support that I've created for myself around, my doctors and all the things. But in the moment, I really needed to pull it to like, because I felt unsupported. Right. Yesterday, I felt like I didn't have the resources or something to deal with what was going on with me, the symptoms. I felt like another one of the stories in my head was that like the whole getting a doctor's appointment always seems sort of like a fight to me. It's consistently a runaround and I'm messaging and then I don't message back for another week. And, this is what I was living in yesterday. And then when I stopped and got off with my coach, I was like, all right, I'm supported right now. I'm okay right now. I have my health. It's fine. There's some discomfort in my body and I have a little bit of fever. I'm going to be okay. Then things started to settle. I didn't need to look towards what needed to happen up here, and I didn't need to look back to my past to explain my present. I just needed to settle into the moment. And when I did that, like I said, everything settled. So Eckhart Tolle talks about, and this used to confuse the crap out of me. There is no past, there is no future, there is only the present. That was really difficult to wrap my brain around because to me, the state of my life was determined by my past. My past created my present in my mind. And if it didn't create my present, then how could I explain the fact that my child is not living in my home anymore? Because something had to have happened to make that go away, you know? So this whole concept kind of pissed me off. But what he means is that most of us spend our days wishing we could go back in the past and change what happened. Or we look to the future to rescue us from the problems that we have in today, right? But really, the past is a matter of your own perception and the recollection that you're telling yourself today in the present. We can't go back and there's nothing tangible that we can pull out of the past. So the past is no more. We can decide how we want to tell it, number one, but also the future, it's only what we think about today in our present. So really, all we ever have is right now. So then the problem becomes if all we have is the present moment, how do we accept what we don't like? Because most of us don't want to stay here if it feels unacceptable. We either want to go back and try to solve for what made it unacceptable, or we want to go to the future to get away from what is unacceptable. But unfortunately, it does not work. So, acceptance is the practice of letting go of your fight against reality. Okay. That's all it is. It's not accepting and saying it's okay that we should lay down like a doormat and this is great. It's fine. This is how it should always be. It's saying this is how it is right now. I may not like it, but I don't have to invest energy in wishing it away. Like, this is my reality. There is no other way that it could be right now than where it is. In the moment that you accept what is in your life, then resistance softens and new choices become possible. New opportunities are able to be seized, right? By accepting what is, you can stop placing your happiness on hold and you can reclaim your energy and your agency. Energy that was once spent on fighting transforms into building meaningful experiences, on healing, on genuine peace, regardless of the outside situation. When you are fighting how the alienating parent is acting or how they've acted before or what your child is thinking or how they will receive you, you are literally outside of yourself, trying to control the things that are not for you to control, right? How you should respond. Maybe you're over explaining in your texts or you're writing all these emails out to all the people. Not to say that you shouldn't do those, but when you're doing those coming from that rushed energy of needing things to change or needing to get through or say the right things so that they receive you the right way, that is you trying to control the external. And you will find it so difficult to create anything new, anything different than what you already have. So you end up piling all of these like kind of experiences on top of one another, which will only leave you feeling exhausted and frustrated and feeling hopeless, helpless, right? So instead, when you say, okay, this is what it is right now, it can be no other way today. I don't have to like it, but this is where I am. You notice that a lot of so long as you're not still in resistance to the fact that you just said that, then you notice that things start to settle inside of you. It's kind of like I was talking about with me yesterday. I was fighting all of these symptoms and everything else, and I wanted to then blame it all on what had happened before or what was currently going on in my life, like how the dogs were behaving or how silly things, right? It was just an indulgent way for me to spin my wheels and not accept what is. By doing that, I wasted so much time, so much energy. So the shift from resistance to acceptance allowed you to invest emotionally in your own life, nurturing your friendships, pursuing interests, and caring for yourself. So your sense of fulfillment no longer depends on external change. When you can invest in the present moment of your life, you building the present moment up, valuing your current circumstances and who you are and what you are building, then you take the focus off of the problem. And now you're focusing on the solution, which will cause you to be available to so much more, being a part of something much bigger than just you. Okay. In summary to everything that I just said, it's that if you're caught in a cycle of I'll be happy when, you know that you're not alone, but notice how you feel each time you resist what's happening. Every time you do it, you add another layer of pain onto your future, onto your today, and onto your future. The more you invest in wishing it were different, the more you miss the moments of life you can enjoy right now. Acceptance doesn't mean loving what's happening. It definitely doesn't mean loving what's happening, but it does mean freeing yourself from the suffering of fighting the current reality. The minute you say, this is how it is, you step into the present, and in that space, you regain power to build something new, no matter how difficult things might feel right now. Okay? Acceptance doesn't mean that you need to be like, okay, this is all great. No, it's just you can then stop making your past mean something to try to explain away your current discomfort. It could just be discomfort and just allow that to be. Or if you're ready for it, you could decide maybe it's the way that I'm viewing this. How else could I view this? Just like you've heard me say before, I said it last week too, is how else could I view this? How's the opposite true? How flip the sentence up on its you could there's Byron Katie talks about doing programs where if you say the person in front of me shouldn't be in the express lane, they've got over 30 items. You could say maybe the person in front of me should be in the express lane, and you can give a reason for it. Why is that true? Why should they be in the express lane? Why shouldn't you be in the express lane? You could come up with all different ways to poke holes in your current story about the present, or about whatever problem you have at hand. But allowing yourself, like loosening your grip on whatever story is causing you pain, will help you to become the watcher and like the active player in your own story as opposed to being the victim of it. All right. So, being in resistance to reality and living in your past or living in your future is going to perpetuate your pain. It's going to pile experience on top of each other to create more pain, more suffering for you long term. The answer is accepting what is in order to be present in the moment so you can invest yourself in today, because today is all you have. Okay? All right, you guys. I'm going to go continue being sick. So I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.